Hi, my name is Melissa Stelmack, and I will be talking about small group instruction, specifically getting set up. In this presentation, I will focus on three topics. The first is setting up your area. The second is setting up small group students. And the third is setting up the other students that are not within your small group. So let's start with setting up your area. You're going to want to find a location within your classroom to do the small group instruction. Generally, teachers do this at a small table. It typically tends to be in the back of the classroom or off to the side. You want it to be an area where there aren't students very close by. A lot of teachers will use kidney bean style tables to do this type of instruction. You're going to want to make sure that your body is facing the rest of the class. This way you can monitor the students as they're doing their other tasks. The students that are going to be within the small group are going to be seated facing you, so their backs are actually facing their peers. This helps minimize distractions that they could encounter. You're going to want to make sure that you set up your materials that you're going to need to engage in small group instruction. This could include, but is definitely not limited to, dry erase boards, dry erase markers, pencils, coloring utensils. Depending on what the small group instruction is aimed towards, you might have hundreds charts close by, letter sound cards, scissors, different things like that. Some ideas for teacher-specific materials to have close by you when you are conducting small group instruction. Some way of collecting notes. I included a picture here, and it just shows a color for each student with sticky notes attached to it. So each student gets a color, and then those sticky notes are on there for the person that is conducting the small group instruction to jot down specific things that they might be noticing. Maybe I noticed that a student is forgetting to regroup into the tens place as they're adding double-digit numbers, and so I might jot down on their folder, practice regrouping. That way I know that will guide my instruction for the next lesson. Another thing to have with you is a checklist. For example, I might be checking off whether or not a student knows their shapes. And so if I have a checklist already made with everyone's names along the left side, shapes across the top as my columns, I can easily boom, 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 boom. Do the students know them or do they not? This is an easy way to collect data as well. And then finally, student binders for data collection. I typically would have a binder near me, and I'd have a little colored folder for each student. So if I saw something that I'm like, this is great, I want to keep this for evidence or for data purposes, or to check back with it later, I could throw it in there. This could also be used, again, for that note taking. That's where I would jot my own notes down in. So let's talk about setting up small group students, getting those students that are going to be in a small group ready for small group time. You're going to want to establish rules, especially because small group instruction is not long. You need that time that they are going to be with you or another classroom teacher or an interventionist. You need that time to be, sacred time. We have to use it efficiently. In my classroom, my situation's a little different. I actually pull small group students into my classroom as well as push into the classrooms and take small groups. In my own classroom, we develop classroom rules together. So we're actually working as a team to develop these rules that we feel would be important in the classroom. My school is also a PBIS school, so we have our 3 expectations: be safe, be respectful, be responsible, and those guide our rules. Some specific things to think about when creating rules for small group instruction. You have to teach them that their eyes need to be on the teacher that's teaching them. So for me, when I'm pushing into classrooms, I have to train the students that although their homeroom teacher or their classroom teacher is in the front of the class, if they're trying to get everyone's attention, that my students disregard that. Their focus is on me. And vice versa. If I was in the front and their classroom teacher was pulling a group, then their focus would be on their classroom teacher while I'm up in the front teaching the classroom. Another important rule to think about implementing when you're working in a small group is that you want the students to move quickly. So if you're doing rotations or centers or switching, maybe there's a buzzer and they're switching their spots, you have to instill in them, like, you have to move fast. Move to the back table, move to your seat. This is all happening very quickly. And then another one to think about too is limiting the time out of the room. So when you're taking that small group, your time together is very limited. You want to hold off on, going to the bathroom, getting drinks of water. Really teach them that that's like emergencies. There's an emergency bathroom situation, you need to go, obviously we go. And then another thing to think about is going over the rules periodically, especially after long breaks. In the next slide, I will actually play a video for you to watch, and we had just returned from fall break, and so I was reviewing rules with my students. Let's take a look. So since we've been out for a little bit, I want to just go through our rules before we start getting deep into math, my favorite thing. So let's talk about our rules. Let's review some of these before we get started this morning. We've been out for a whole week, hard to believe. Can somebody tell me one of our rules for being safe? Dunya?
We push in our chairs.
So we want to make sure my room's really tight, so we're going to push in our chairs. We don't want anyone falling, tripping on our chairs. What else for being safe? Janelle?
We use walking feet.
We're using our walking feet just like you do in the hallways. Our expectation, even in my classroom, is to use our walking feet. I know we're all very excited to get to math, but we don't need to run into our seat. How about being respectful? What are ways we can show that we're respectful in my classroom? Mohammed?
Use kind words.
We're going to use kind words, the words that are coming out of our mouth. I'm going to think about what I'm about to say before I say it and make sure it's kind. Janelle?
We're going to keep our eyes on the speaker while she's teaching.
Good. Eyes on the speaker. Not only our eyes, Janelle. What else should be on the speaker?
Ears.
Our eyes and our ears. Does that mean your eyes and ears should always be on me?
Yes. No.
Am I always?
Everybody.
Whoever is the
Speaker.
The talker or the speaker. It could be Dunya, it could be Mohammed. Very good. My eyes and ears are on the speaker. There's one more super important one that goes with being respectful. Dunya?
We follow directions.
Yeah, we're going to follow directions and we're going to... You just did it, Dunya?
Raise your hand.
We're going to raise our hands. Sometimes when we're in the small group, I know it's just us. We know each other and you want to shout out, but why is that not okay to do? Right? If Mohammed thinks he knows the answer and Dunya has a question. And just thinking about that, I stress that all the time in my small groups, especially if I have a new student joining a small group, because they do get comfortable and it is so small. It's different from a whole group setting that they, for some reason, want to shout out more often than they would. And so just teaching them why we still have to raise our hand, even though there's only a few of us, or sometimes even just 3 of us all together. All at the same time. Why is that not okay to do, Janelle?
Because it can get really loud and it can hurt people's ears.
Yeah, remember, I have sensitive ears. It's first of all going to hurt my ears, and it's going to get loud. Am I going to be able to hear Dunya's question?
No.
Or Mohammed's answer?
No.
And then that doesn't make any sense. And last but not least, being responsible. How can we be responsible in my classroom? Mohammed?
We follow directions.
Good. Junia kind of tagged that into being respectful. You're right.
I don't know how. Never mind.
You want to take a second and think about it?
Wait, wait, let me try to stick with the answer.
It's up to you. I liked that answer, but it's up to you.
Follow
directions. Do you think that's being responsible if you follow directions?
Participate and do our best work.
Good, you hit all three of them. He didn't want to go for just one. He says follow directions, right? A teacher tells you to do something, you do it, right? Because that's what we're here to do. We participate, we raise our hand and participate, and we do our
Best work.
Best work, that's why I put up here. Best work. I'm not just rushing to get it done. I'm not just writing anything here, I finished my work. Because I don't care if you finish it, I care that you did your best work. Great job review. And so you could see the students know the rules. We did refer to our rules poster. Again, we review those periodically. It's important to teach the expectations to the students that are going to be within your small group. Really important to reinforce what hard work looks like. I'm big on hard work. So sometimes when they leave the classroom, it's like, ooh, it's a break. Even if it's within the classroom, they feel like it's different. But right from the beginning, you have to really work hard at teaching them this is important time. We really need to work hard. Doing our best work all of the time, participating, again, raising your hand. They get in that small group, and if you don't train them immediately, they'll want to shout out. That you want to tell them, you expect them to ask questions, you expect them to focus on the group and to follow the expectations. Like at my school, we always follow be safe, be respectful, be responsible. You're going to want to share with students the purpose of you meeting with them. They're young. You don't have to, say, well, you really struggle with this, and so that's why we're meeting. You need to present it in a kid-friendly way, right? And it's okay to use their strengths and their weaknesses to explain it too. Like 4th grade, we work on this, and so we're going to do this today because I want to make sure that you're able to do A, B, C, and D. That's okay to do too. In kindergarten today, we're going to work on our sounds because later on in the week, we're going to be reading some words with these sounds. Stressing why you're meeting with them. What are we going to work on? Why are we working on it? And why is it important? You're going to want to set routines. Routines are really important. In my classroom, I work with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and my 5th graders come in, they have the same routine every day. This is specific for them. In my 5th grade, they have 2 review questions on my board. They know as soon as they come in, dry erase markers are out, dry erase boards are out. They're working on those 2 review problems. It gives me time to get situated if one group's leaving and one group's coming. So they know that, they expect that. When I don't do that, if we have shortened time or something, they're thrown off from it. So it's good to have routines and be consistent with them. Are you working in a literacy group? Do you start with dictation at the beginning of every group? Do students need their tiles out immediately? Some of those things that you could do to help aid in utilizing all of the time that you have together. Do you do a I do, we do, you do pattern? Again, that time efficiency, you don't have a lot of time with them. And then also having a routine for transitioning from the small group back to the whole group. And finally, setting up the other students, right? The other students are doing something when you're meeting with the small group, unless you have another teacher in the classroom and you're working with the rest of the group. So setting up the other students, they need rules too. They need to have rules for when you're working with small group. And there's some specific ones to think about. One is, when can I interrupt the teacher, right? Because this time is so precious. You really want to curb students coming up to you and asking you for help and telling you things, and like we don't have time for that. So when can I interrupt the teacher? I'm always about, is someone throwing up, bleeding, like medical emergencies, they've had a seizure, they're bleeding, a bathroom emergency, someone might have hurt me on the outside, hit me, pinched me. And again, these in my classroom have already been established. Even in the classrooms that I push into, I've established this with all of the students, so we're all aware of this, whether I'm doing the small group instruction or the classroom teacher is doing the small group instruction. And then going on that note, how do they interrupt? Like, is it a sign, is it like they come to you, they stand by you? Do they put up 4 fingers, like a bathroom emergency? Do they set an object on the desk? Obviously, a medical emergency, that's time, is sensitive. You need them to immediately come over to you. Those are things you have to teach them. You need to set up expectations with the students that are away from you while you're working in the small group. They need to be working the entire time. This isn't time to dilly-dally. Setting a noise level. I included a picture here off to the side, voices, levels, and it's the lights that just click on and off. I've used these in years past. Level 0 is, noise off, level 1 is whisper, and so on. Encourage students to ask friends for help if and when it's appropriate. When you're starting a small group, you might say, today if you need help, you can ask 1 or 2 friends that sit near you. Or it might be a day where you're like, if you need help, skip that and go to another one. And then you need to have routines that are consistent with those students that are not in the small group. Realistically, you're probably rotating small groups. So at some point, everyone's going to be in a small group and everyone's going to be not in the small group. Everyone needs to learn these. What are the students doing during this time? Is it a time where they're on an app like Dreambox or Waggle and then you're meeting with a small group? Or are they on reading A to Z? So when most of the kids are doing that app, you're meeting a small group. Or are the other students in rotations? Are they doing center-like instruction? So they're going from, red table, blue table. What do they do when they finish a task that's huge? I've seen teachers just make like a plus sign, like what I can do when I'm done. And then if you finish that, what I'd like to do when I'm done, and things that they can do when things they would like to do when they're done doing the things the teacher wants them to finish up. Here I included a picture, I'm done, now what? Must do, like mustard, finish this, this, and this, catch up. If you haven't finished some of these things, maybe catch up on your journal, and then may do, and so on. And then transitions. How and when are these students moving to another center or switching to small group? Is there an alarm? Is there a bell that you're ringing? Is it a whistle that you're blowing, a small little whistle that you're blowing? How are the students knowing when it's time to move about? Is it that you say, all right, you have 1 minute and then we're going to clean up? I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you so much.